At the departure's drop-off, she suddenly froze and hissed, "Don't come any farther. You'll make me look bad in front of Lauren and Ashley." I looked at her for one quiet second, nodded and said, "Got it." Then I let go of the luggage cart and walked back to my truck. 3 weeks later, when her plane touched down, the person waiting at arrivals definitely wasn't me. Rosie and I had always lived in different realities. Mine is made of concrete, steel, and paychecks that actually clear. Hers is made of filters, ring lights, and the endless hunger of strangers on the internet. For the first 18 months, that contrast felt cute. 6 months ago, she left her solid corporate marketing gig to chase full-time influencer money. We shook on a deal. I would carry the big bills, rent, utilities, insurance, for exactly 6 months so she could launch properly. She would use her own savings for cameras, clothes, trips, everything else. It was a loan with an expiration date, not a lifestyle subscription. Within weeks, her business expenses started looking suspiciously like designer handbags and 5-star hotel balconies, and I could feel the resentment building like water behind a dam. The little digs had been piling up for months. My hobbies weren't content-worthy. My wardrobe wasn't on brand. My entire existence was apparently dragging down her aesthetic. This upcoming 3-week content trip across Europe was meant to be her make-or-break moment. Her final splash before the 6-month clock ran out and she had to start paying her own way again. The airport scene wasn't the first warning sign, but it was the one that snapped the last thread. I pulled up to the terminal, wrestled her 3 enormous suitcases out of the trunk, and started pushing the cart toward check-in. That's when she spotted Lauren and Ashley waiting by the counters, dressed like they were shooting a Vogue spread instead of boarding a red-eye. They glanced at me in my faded jeans, work boots, and hoodie and did that tiny nose wrinkle people do when something smells slightly off. Rosie stopped so fast the cart almost tipped. She whipped around, eyes wide with genuine alarm. "Okay, this is far enough," she whispered through clenched teeth. I blinked. "I was just going to walk you to security." She actually rolled her eyes like I'd suggested riding a donkey through the terminal. A quick, panicked glance at her friends, then back to me. "No, seriously, don't. You'll embarrass me." There it was. Plain, unfiltered, and final. I wasn't her partner saying goodbye. I was a liability to be hidden before the cameras came out. That I saw Lauren cover her mouth to hide a smirk. Ashley lifted her phone just a fraction, probably already recording for the group chat. In that single second, every memory rearranged itself into perfect focus. Every time she angled the camera so I stayed out of frame. Every time she introduced me as my friend Tom to sponsors. Every time I swallowed a comment because it might not play well to the algorithm. Something inside me didn't break. It just switched off. That I gave her a small, polite smile. "You're absolutely right. Wouldn't want that." I released the cart handle. "Safe travels, Rosie." Then I turned and walked away. No scene. No pleading. Just the sound of my boots on the tile getting quieter and quieter. She stood there with her mouth open, waiting for the dramatic reaction she could post about later. She didn't get one. That the drive home was the clearest 60 minutes of my life. The childish part of me wanted to pile every sequin dress on the front lawn and light it on fire. The adult part of me, the part that designs load-bearing structures for a living, wanted this done cleanly, legally, and irreversibly. First stop, the dealership. That gleaming white Range Rover she loved posing in front of. Title was 100% in my name. I walked in, told the manager I was ready to sell it back today, and 4 hours later I walked out with a cashier's check that made my eyes water. When I got home, the house felt like a museum dedicated to someone I used to know. Her clothes owned half the closet. Her skincare empire had conquered both bathrooms, and the entire guest room had been converted into a walk-in studio of backdrops and ring lights. Time for an exorcism. I called the most expensive junk removal and deep cleaning company in the city. Told them I wanted every single item that wasn't mine gone. Clothes, makeup, props, furniture she'd picked out, all of it. I wanted the house scrubbed until it smelled like nothing had ever lived here but me. They quoted me a price. I told them I'd double it if the whole job was finished in under 36 hours. While they worked, I handled the digital purge, changed every shared streaming password, removed her from every bank account and credit card. Then I logged into the back end of her influencer website, the one I had built and hosted for her when she started, and quietly switched the admin email and recovery number to mine. I now owned the keys to her entire online kingdom. By the following night, the house was a blank slate. The closets were empty, the counters were bare. The studio was just a sunny, empty room again. But empty isn't home, so I filled it with things that were actually mine. I bought the deep, ridiculous couch I'd always wanted. I dragged my hand-built walnut coffee table out of storage, the one she'd called too rustic. I mounted an actually good TV with a sound system that rumbles in your chest. The former studio became a home gym and workshop where I could build real things again. For the next 2 weeks, I lived like a man who'd been underwater for years and finally broke the surface. I saw friends I hadn't hung out with since she decided they were low energy. I hiked actual mountains instead of posing in front of fake ones. I went to baseball games and ate hot dogs without worrying about the lighting. Her texts trickled in from Europe, sun-kissed selfies in Santorini, pasta in Positano, 0 questions about me. I never answered once. 3 days before her return flight, I used part of the car money to book the trip I'd been dreaming of for years. 2 weeks riding a motorcycle through Utah, Arizona, and Nevada. My flight out left the same morning hers landed. The night before, I sent her one email. Subject line, logistics for your arrival. Rosie, as requested at the airport, I have removed myself from your life and your frame. All of your possessions have been professionally packed and placed in paid storage, Unit 42, 123 Storage Way, Code 1234, first month covered. The vehicle has been sold. It was titled solely to me. The house locks have been changed. You are no longer on the resident list. This should give you the clean backdrop you've always wanted. I'll be offline and out of the country for the next few weeks. Best of luck with the brand. Tommy hit send, shut the phone off, and went to bed smiling for the first time in months. Update 2: I was camped under a sky full of stars in Zion when I finally powered the phone back on 5 days later. The explosion was glorious. Hundreds of missed calls. Voicemails that auto-transcribed into pure, high-pitched chaos. Texts that went from confusion to bargaining to threats in record time. My buddy Dave had been feeding me updates. Rosie waited at baggage claim for 90 minutes, posing forlornly with her luggage mountain, certain I was just stuck in traffic. When I never appeared, she lost it right there on the curb. She eventually paid $180 for a cab to the house. The driver helped unload her 3 giant bags onto my front porch. She waved him off, dug out her key, and nothing. The key didn't work. She stood there in designer sweats, 3 weeks of European haul around her. Realizing she was officially locked out, her friends Lauren and Ashley suddenly had plans and couldn't possibly fit 3 oversized suitcases in their tiny city cars. Her parents had to drive 2 hours to rescue her. Dave's neighbor filmed the whole thing from across the street. Dad red-faced and yelling, Mom crying into tissues, Rosie sitting on a Louis Vuitton trunk like a deposed influencer queen. That same night, the 3 of them launched a coordinated Instagram tearstorm about toxic men and being abandoned with nothing. I had already sent a calm heads-up to the friends who mattered, so the smear campaign landed like wet tissue paper. Someone leaked what she'd actually said at the airport. The victim edit didn't stick. The cherry on top was her website. While riding through the desert, I'd made one tiny update from a gas station Wi-Fi. replaced every polished photo with a full-screen scan of the junk removal invoice, total circled in bright red, and the caption brand refresh in progress. Stay tuned. She saw the screenshot someone met her, screamed so loud her parents heard it downstairs, and took the entire site offline in under an hour. A week later, the lawyer letters arrived. Fancy stationery demanding I return her house keys and provide ongoing support. My attorney, who lives for this stuff, fired back copies of the deed, the car title, and an itemized bill for every dollar she'd never contributed in the past year. The letter closed with an invitation to see him in court if she felt lucky. Radio silence ever since. Final update: 4 months have passed. My house is quiet, solid, and mine. The coffee table I built with my own hands sits in the living room looking exactly right. The workshop is full of new projects. The couch is broken in from actual naps, not photo shoots. Word is Rosie moved back in with her parents. The influencer account is a graveyard of throwbacks and vague quotes about growth. Lauren and Ashley ghosted the second the free rides and borrowed clout dried up. The only echo I ever got from her came last month. A gallery owner I know called laughing. She'd walked in trying to sell him some of the cheap particle board furniture she'd insisted we buy because it photographed better. He told her it was worthless. She apparently started ranting about how I'd destroyed her empire. He told me, "Bro, you didn't destroy anything. You just stopped paying for the smoke and mirrors." Turns out there was nothing underneath. And that's the whole story. She spent years training an audience to believe her life was perfect because I was standing behind the camera holding everything up. The second I stepped out of frame, the whole illusion collapsed. She chose the spotlight over the person keeping the lights on, so I turned the lights off. Now I'm building things that are real, furniture that will outlast trends, trips that don't need a hashtag, a life that doesn't require a filter to feel good. She wanted a backdrop that made her look flawless, that I was never the backdrop, that I was the foundation. Foundations don't pose. They just hold everything up until they decide to walk away. Then the whole pretty house falls down.